Hello, East West. Welcome to some thoughts about small group instruction. I've been trying to do a lot of small group instruction this year, which has gotten derailed, among other things, in our online experience. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to make this work in a different setting. I've really enjoyed small group conferencing and discussion this year. It provides a social outlet that a lot of students need. I'm thinking especially of shyer students, of ELL students who are less confident speaking in big groups, and of any students that are underconfident with the content or skills that we're working with. For those students, it allows them to ask questions in an intimate and less high-stakes setting. And for higher skilled students, it allows them to extend their thinking and really share in a more meaningful way and more engaging way. And for all of these reasons, I think it's really the most authentic learning that happens in the classroom, more so than whole group class discussions and instruction, and certainly more than like individual work. So I'm trying to think about, how do I make this work in online settings? Because it's really difficult to do things like jigsaws and stations and gallery walks, writing carousels. How do we translate that into such a different forum? So the first thing I did was I really missed just being able to sit down with students at their tables and listen to their conversations, pose questions, answer questions. So I have 3 kids of my own at home that I'm trying to do online learning with. I can't meet live with every class every period, but I can try to meet once or twice a week. And sometimes I've broken up that time within the class period to just have that time with like a table of students. So on like 2 days of this week, I met with period 3, but I broke up the time, so I was only talking with a few students for a few minutes. And if this was my co-talk class, maybe I could split this with Nina or Tanya, and we can divide the students and try to talk to them in a more intimate and engaging way in the small group kind of setting. Another thing I'm really thinking about more now is how to do like the writing carousels and stations, those small group conversations and tasks that I think are really important learning and engaging learning for students. So what I've done is I haven't tried too much with Zoom rooms yet. I know you can do that. I hope to practice more with that later. I have created individual Google Meets for students in small groups. And then I've given them either a document or set of slides to work on with their group. So let me show you a little bit how that has worked. For this group, an AP language group, it was kind of like a writing carousel where a small group of students was looking at a text together, commenting on it and analyzing it. So they first went to this document, they found their group, they went to their discussion link, which it was its own Google Meet, separated from the rest of the class, and they each had their own prompt to work on. While students were working during that class time, they worked together to annotate, making comments. I would go into each individual Google Doc and I would try to answer questions if they had them. And then they also worked on picking out quotes and commenting on quotes. And we brought this back together in our next whole class live discussion. So I thought this worked pretty well for that kind of small group look at a text. The other thing I've done that I've thought a lot about is how to replicate those stations kind of work. So I've created a different set of slides for each group for this work. Each group might have their own set of documents, or maybe you could throw a video up on here, different kind of text to look at, and then they comment together on what they see in that small group setting as well. And I can come in and out of these groups and see how they're doing in their conversation and in their comments on the text. Additionally, I've thought a lot about how to do infographic responses, and this is structured somewhat similarly, but I feel like this is some of the most valuable small group discussion that I've done in my class, where they created a visual response to a literary text that is an interpretation based on evidence. I've done a few different ones of these, but probably my favorite is the pie of blame. So for this kind of infographic response, students are asked who is to blame for usually a character's death. In this case, Dimmesdale's death in The Scarlet Letter. They have to go back to the text, figure out who shares a slice of the blame, and explain their percentages based on evidence in the text. So the way I've replicated this in an online format is to, again, create a document for each small group that they go to together during that class time. I'd have a model for them here, and then they would do the same kind of task where they're having a conversation and putting that infographic together, explaining based on evidence. I feel like this is working fairly well. I'm still working out the kinks in the technology. It will probably take a lot more modeling if we start over again in September with a similar format. I'm also thinking about how to get feedback from the groups. The math department has used this, and so has Abraham and Nick and Nina. So this is something I'm thinking about using for group work as well. But I would be really curious how other people are thinking about this and what other like advice you might have for me. So thanks. Hope that some of this was helpful and would love to hear from you later as well. Hope everyone's doing well.